But
Alrighty.
I have tons of questions. So, I mean, I guess we can wait another minute or so. But if I could just pick your brain for a little
Yeah.
bit, that could be really helpful. Because,
Okay.
I mean, so I rewatched the last meeting, and I went and reached out to a bunch of people, and I haven't heard anything back. So I was hoping
Uh-huh.
they might have some contacts at like the United Way, so I reach someone directly because um. All right, so I guess we'll just start.
Yeah.
So, and if other people join us, we'll add them in.
Mhm.
But so I reached out to the United Way for the 211 system because initially I thought they didn't have a Facebook. I was wrong. They did. I thought they only had like the big one. They apparently have a regional one, and it's much more active. Has like a little over 700 followers. And I reached out to them to get, say, hey, look, I can make you some professionally produced stuff for free. Just let me know what I need to say. And I
Mhm.
haven't heard anything back. So do you, if you could email me someone's contact info at the United Way that I could like email directly, because so tell me what you think. These are the three videos I had as an idea just to start off with, right? Because these are
Mhm.
three that I can do myself. Like, what is 211, right? Like,
Mhm.
and then like when you call, what would happen, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I would need someone, I need to sit down with someone and kind of walk through that experience. And that would,
Mhm.
I don't want to call the system and burden the system. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So when I reach out to that person from the United Way, they can hopefully help me walk through like what someone would expect when they call, right?
Okay.
Um, then I also thought, because one of the things that Josh Maxwell brought up, Commissioner Maxwell brought up in the last meeting, was that one of the bigger hurdles is paperwork. And so I figured, what if we made little videos like, here's how you fill out this form, right? So I just need to know, and I've done those before. I've done those for
Right.
like how to fill out voter registration, right? And it's
Right.
the same concept. You just put a picture of the form on one side and then words on the other, and you like walk people through it step by step.
Mhm.
A video they can
Mhm.
just pause. You know what I mean? As they
Mhm.
do it. Super useful. I've gotten a lot of great results in the past through like how to fill out other forms. So I again just need to know what is the paperwork that needs to get filled out,
Mhm.
and then someone needs to just sit down with me and we go through it. You know what I mean? We just go through it and record
Mhm.
it, and
Mhm.
then I edit it together, put in the words, and then put that out there. And then, what is the proper term for someone who's is it underhoused? Like someone who is maybe not considered, because I think we should do a video on like what is someone who may not consider themselves homeless, right? Like someone who
Maybe housing instability.
housing instability.
Mhm.
What is housing instability?
That means that your housing is not stable, that you could be at risk, or you could be at risk of homelessness, right?
Okay.
With either housing instability or at risk of homelessness. There's a couple of things that, like, I think how to use 211 would be helpful for everybody, right? But also, it would be interesting for you or someone to kind of go through it, and after you've gotten all of the steps and worked through that, that actually would happen, because that's always the concern, that it's not as easy as you say, or as accurate, right? But I do agree, and I like that idea on how to use 211, because everybody directs everybody to that. And that's what the counties and all the funders would like for us to do, is to refer people to 211 to be able to draw them to all of the services and resources in the community. So I love that idea, right? As far as completing the paperwork is not necessarily, um, you would have to be program or grant or assistance specific as to what paperwork you're talking about,
Oh, so we're talking about possibly like 30 different
right?
things.
Depending on what that person's going for, right?
So that might be a
Um,
little too ambitious.
right.
But
However, right now, and I need to look and see when the deadline for the CARES um, funding. That's the eviction. That's the money to people who owe monies, right? Hey,
hey, Renee,
Renee,
you're
it might
muted,
be
by the way.
good that if there was a video on that, how to apply
On
for
what?
that,
Sorry, I got distracted with Renee. A video on what?
on a CARES fund to work with people who have the who owe rental assistance. I'm sorry, who owe rent, and they can get assistance up to 6 months. If you were going to do a video, to me, that might make sense, depending on when that deadline is, so that more people can access it who are eligible for it. And actually, there's a lot of people eligible for it. It really is the landlord, if the landlord will be in agreement to accept that particular, the way that program is run, or whatever the requirements are. But because it's income based, but the income base is the limit is at the Chester County medium income, that's relatively high. And I don't think that people recognize that that's a resource that they could access that they hadn't even thought about.
So because the median income is higher, that means the threshold is higher.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So getting that information out. So, because I think that when we were talking and you were talking about the possibility of some of the people that you knew who might be at risk of being evicted, this could be a resource for them, right?
Yeah.
And it's over and above the people that we would probably see in our programs, because we can get the information to our folks. Is that we're trying to figure out how to get that information to folks who are not connected to social services already.
So this would also be important because this is to get it to them as soon as possible, because this is something that is before they lose their home, correct? This is something to prevent them from hitting the 211 system. Right. So, okay, let me just flip these so we can kind of have an order of operations, right? So we want
and it's a time frame. Renee, do you know what the deadline is for that?
They have to have the funds dispersed by November 30th.
But so there's not a cutoff as to when they can apply yet?
No, it started, I believe, July 6th.
Okay, all right.
And to dovetail on what you were saying, it is important in terms of trauma response, that when people are in the thick of it, there's all this help out there. There are all these links and all this information, but they're in, panic mode, and they won't call until the funds are gone. Mm-hmm. After they've tried to do everything that they can do in their minds. So you're right.
And I guess that kind of brings us to, and just to bring you up to speed, we were talking about possible videos to do. And the two that we've kind of settled on so far are what is the CARES Fund and what is 211. And the other one I proposed was what is housing instability? And I think that kind of dovetails into that, because I think a lot of people, like you said, they'll do all these things and they don't realize that they are in this zone where they can receive help. And I think that because they don't see themselves as homeless, they aren't aware that those resources are available to them. So I think we need to create, so people vision, there's a layer called homelessness. So what we need to do is create a layer on top of that called homeless instability, right? Like the danger zone, right? Like this is the red zone where we can still do stuff, right? There's resources that can that can help you not have to radically change your lifestyle, because once you get to that next one, then you're looking at radical lifestyle change and things that are like getting an eviction on your record is something that that takes years to get off, and that just makes getting the next housing. So I think focusing, Renee, you were the one that really brought that to my attention. If we could sit down and go through like, what are some examples, and then just talk about them. And I think, again, this could go into that destigmatization aspect of this, right? By putting something like this out there, it could be like, oh, that's like my cousin, or, oh, I know, right? Because we're going to start seeing, unfortunately, a rise in this kind of stuff, helping people recognize it as it happens instead of when they're in the middle of it, like you said, in panic mode. Like when they hit the threshold, they're like, okay, I'm now in the homeless instability stage,
Yeah, and this may sound like semantics, but God, I wish it wasn't. If somewhere we put prevention in with, it could be homeless instability and prevention or something, but for some reason, people in that kind of crisis don't understand the word instability as much as prevention. Like, how do I keep this from happening? I don't know. That's up for discussion, but
What if you framed it something like housing is more than keeping a roof over your head?
well,
Because isn't there like definitions that say like there needs to be access to running water and like all these other things?
yeah. No, I think homeless instability is important. I think it's an important reframing for people to have. They need to know that these words exist, just like people hear of food desert, and they don't associate that with their neighborhood, because on every other corner you can get a cheesesteak or fried chicken or pizza, right? But when you talk to them about the fact that you can't get fresh food or vegetables, that's something different. So I think homeless instability is an important, and I love how you put it in a framework as levels. Homeless instability.
Housing instability, not homeless instability.
Thank you. Yeah, because when you're homeless, that's pretty stable. I love you, Cheryl. Housing instability, and I like the idea of putting it in stages so people can look at it and say, I don't have to get there. But one thing else, also you said, I don't know, yeah, you said something, Kyle, that reminded me. All right, so we talk about the CARES Fund, but the PA link has that video, they have videos as to how to be a good tenant. I think it's important that we, is that Elizabeth Doan? It's on her flyer, and I don't have it here.
Right.
But there are videos that teach people, you have rights, yeah. You also have responsibilities, yeah. And we can't ignore the fact that people who have been in these situations and in trauma for so long, or just generationally, or whatever it is, it could be a one-time thing. It's enough of a shock that they don't get the fact that you're responsible to be a good tenant. But what does that mean if nobody ever taught you or told you? And those are videos out there already.
Yeah,
Now,
could you send those to me?
I'm sorry, isn't that the courses that they're not individual videos? Isn't that you have to go through the course?
Exactly.
Okay.
But just having those links on there. I don't know if you have a flyer. I don't have anybody's contact information anymore. Elizabeth Doan.
I have it on my email, and when I get to the office, I can shoot that to you.
Yeah.
And the link to the course, because my staff does the course in order so they can then encourage their folks to do it.
Yes.
So they've done it.
And it's
because having a link to something like that would be very useful on the resource page that I'm building.
Yes.
So I think what I like, again, just kind of making sure I'm on the same page, is and knowing that if we don't do things from a strength perspective, people are going to shy away from it, right? So homelessness versus housing stability, it's a different message, and it reaches people differently. And people maybe can accept the fact that they're housing unstable, right?
Yes.
But they may not be able to accept that risk of being homeless, and that they don't. It's just a different way in which they perceive themselves, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's just human nature, right? Like it's that boiling frog, the frog in the boiling pot, right? Like the temperature just keeps on getting turned up, and then you're like, oh my God, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right. So the prevention piece would be like 211. It would be like the CARES fund, and we'll have to find you the exact words for whatever that funding is, and that's through HAC. That's the way you get it through Chester County.
Through what is it? The housing
Authority of Chester County. They're the ones who administer it. So it would be, if you wanted to have an interview with, I think, Robin Sense.
Yeah.
Right? She could direct you through that process. And I think she might even have a video out on how to be able to
access it.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think.
Yeah, my resources are here. I can make whatever, but I also don't want to remake the wheel. If stuff already exists, I'd rather, focus my resources on something else, and then we just provide those links.
But I think what's significant is how do we get it out into the general community so that they can see. So that's the key. The folks that we connect with, they know they know where we are. They know how to get us. We know how to get them, and possibly people within their circle, but there's a whole group of folks, which I think is when you initially started contacting people who don't know how to access this information.
And so that's a good segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is like possible ways of distribution. And I just want to go over some of the ones we talked about in the last meeting, because like I said, my expertise lies in digital stuff, and that I can get in front of people on their phones, right? But let's be honest, if you're homeless or in unstable housing, you may not have access to that kind of stuff. You may not even have access to the internet at home. So we need real world places. And some of the places that we thought about were, we're going to come up with a physical resource sheet, a toolkit. I like that term, toolkit. We were thinking schools through the school districts. Someone needs to reach out to the different school districts, because unfortunately they're all individual silos. Wawa's, that I already spoke to my friend who works at Wawa. That's as simple as just going to the individual locations, speaking to the manager, and putting it up on the bulletin board. The food banks, I imagine you guys have contacts through the food bank. Yeah. So I don't think getting it to them is going to be difficult. And another place I thought, this came to me after the meeting, but diners, because I don't know. I know they're not as popular here as where I'm originally from, but I imagine someone who maybe just got kicked out of their house, there aren't a lot, like we spoke about in the last meeting, there aren't a lot of places open. Diners are one of them. And you can go in for like $1.50, buy a cup of coffee and sit there, right? And they're not going to kick you out. Yeah. And so I think there's an incentive for diner owners to have that information available to people so they don't take up a seat, right? So I think that we might find allies there. That they might be willing, restaurants may be willing to distribute these. Again, we have to ask individually, but I think, I have talked to some of my friends. We'll have some volunteers. I wrote in the email, I do a show, and after this week, I'm taking the next 2 weeks off to kind of focus on this, because I spoke to my friends. We can do like a sprint. We can put together all of this information in a couple of weeks and then just like distribute it out as we need it. So what were some of the other places you guys think, like touch points? Oh, one of the other things I just popped in my head, I didn't write it in my notes, but bus stations. I think you said that, Renee, right? Bus stations?
Yes.
So maybe I'm thinking like a sticker. If we could have something that's like a sticker that we could stick at the bus station. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Something that's like a square that has basic 211 information. I mean, just the nuts and bolts, right? Like this is just the basic information. Before you hop on the bus down to 69th Street Station, call 211.
Or if it said need help with housing. Lots of people need help with housing. They could be looking for a brand new house. They don't know, and that would draw their eye to, why are there children in my yard? Right. I'm sorry. I love children.
Right, yeah.
But whatever the sticker would say, I love that idea, because then it wouldn't just be a pamphlet, a flyer that can blow away. We get permission to put it on. I don't know if we mentioned supermarkets before, because they have community boards too.
Yes. Well, we mentioned food banks, but yes, grocery stores is probably a similar thing.
Certainly, because they have those community boards, and on their way out the door that most people look at. Since you sent the email out with the two, with the agenda for this meeting, I thought of 3 things. I thought of them last week, and I think maybe Josh or someone mentioned LCH, La Comunidad Hispana. They absolutely need to be part of the distribution pool.
Well, I was intending on making all of the things that we make, like if we make the sticker, we make it in both English and Spanish. I have that ability. I do speak Spanish. Right. So that is something that.
But in terms of the population that we don't generally always see, they go there.
Yeah, and I have contacts in that community too. Like my friend literally does every quinceañera in the area. Like every quinceañera goes through her. She's amazing. And
nice.
Having those kind of interpersonal contacts, I think, are getting deep into the community is what we're going to have to do. And lives by
that's how we're going to change. That's how we're going to change the game. Like you said, there's not going to be somebody overlaying us with a solution.
I think also when we talk about, I guess, having physical information, I think, and I'm trying to think of where like any representation of the community goes. I agree. Wawa is one, right? That's like the United Nations of, goes through
Yeah.
there, right? But also when you think about maybe Starbucks, if they still exist, or Dunkin' Donuts, because again, we're broadening the reach
Yeah.
of folks. So just to be able to think about that, I love the idea of the supermarkets, because everybody eventually has to get to the supermarket. But I also realize everybody else uses Walmart and Target. Like
Yeah.
those are the two staples that have taken us through the COVID.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, it doesn't hurt to ask. I never shy away from asking. The worst they say is no.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And Target, and they've been good community partners, I think.
Yeah.
And when I think of supermarkets, I think of the Walmart, I think of Wegmans, I think
Okay.
of
Right.
Target too. I don't
Right.
shop at those places, though. I won't.
Right.
Why are these kids in my yard?
Right.
Anyway, I should just.
Or Aldi. Aldi is another good one.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah.
See, I think the other thing is when you reach out to them, that it's not only about we want to provide information to the community, because it could very well be their staff
That's true.
who are in need of the service also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a
so
very.
it's-
Ask them to put it in the staff room.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. That is very important. And often, again, they're among the people that, well, this help is for other people, not for me, until it is for you.
Mhm.
Two
And
things.
on that point, might as well even reach out to the local, like McDonald's. Like, I think reaching out to any, like, it may be a harder lift to the mom and pops, but if you reach out to a franchise, right, you can hit maybe 5 McDonald's, right?
Mhm.
Like, so I figure why not reach out to the restaurants too and ask them again to put it in their staff rooms,
Right.
not necessarily for public distribution. But
Right.
just say, hey,
Exactly.
in case if anyone that works for you
Exactly.
needs this information, here it is. I think, again, an employer has every incentive to do something like that.
Right. And
Right.
Cheryl, like you mentioned before, we're a word of mouth community. This is how information gets out. I didn't say it last time, but I was thinking about the Bridge Academy. Kyle, are you familiar with Jordan or Josh Krantz?
No.
But the Bridge Academy is, oh my goodness, they are a hub for this community, at least I would say, and also the Point. These are nonprofit religious organizations, but community organizations more than anything else.
They're faith-based social service agencies, probably is the best way to say it, right?
The what?
So they're faith-based, but they're social service agencies.
Yes.
Right. That's probably a better word.
Which have a large following.
Yep, they do.
The Bridge has an incredibly large, the Point, as I understand it.
Mhm.
And somebody mentioned libraries before, but I think it was in a different context and it wasn't in terms of distribution.
Are they open?
They are. Oh, I'm not sure if they're open. I saw them doing work on the doors, and I know my daughter is, she has a job there, and they told her to come back the day after Labor Day. So maybe they're preparing to open.
Okay.
But, they have those tables there with all the information. So I know I always stop by that table. So
it's the printed information, it's the digital information. I don't know if there's another way in which to get information out.
Well, we get it in the hands of the people with the biggest mouths, or I'm sorry, the squeaky wheels. I don't, like people on city council, like Jackie Elamine.
Yeah.
Like Pat C. Ray.
Right.
These are people who can get this information in people's hands.
So so I guess when you talk about the elected officials office, who receive folks who come in there with issues and things like that,
right.
If they're abreast of it, like we know the commissioners know basic information, like they know about CARES, but do they know about all the other services that are out there in their particular area to be able to send people to? So it's almost like a public service kind of announcement for folks.
Well, actually, I would think that there would be value in if we could have, like you said, a public service announcement. If we had just we made it for them, right? We made the email or the response. Do you know what I mean? Just say, hey, elected official, here you go,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that way it has everything, and maybe it's a separate thing from this public thing that we make, right? It's perhaps more detailed. Like, whereas this public thing is going to be, here's just the basic information, and the thing that we give to the elected officials to distribute is a lot more detailed. Because, you know, if someone's coming to, you know, Mayor Herron or Commissioner Josh Maxwell, right, they've already probably been aware of some of these smaller programs that we've talked about, right? So I think that maybe that's a separate document that we need to make.
You mean the constituent is already aware of the things, or that the commissioners and the officials aren't aware of the smaller organizations?
Not smaller. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. But I meant that if someone has gotten to the point where they get into communication with a public servant, I would imagine that they are more informed than the basic person, right? Because someone would have got them there, right? They would have somewhere led them to that interaction.
Right.
So I think they're ready for a more
robust
information dump. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like they're okay. I'm actively searching for this information. Whereas the other stuff is like, hey, we're trying to get your attention. So it's just like, here's the important stuff, right? And maybe it doesn't have, here's the applications and the deadlines and all that stuff. But whereas the constituent email would, right? Because it's like step 2, right? Whereas the other one is more of a step 1 document, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think that can be linked. I mean, you're the media expert. As I'm imagining, I'm trying to understand what you're saying, especially as we talk about the reach and getting it into the hands of the people who need it. For example, the public officials may have a certain document, like you said, but they could also have the link to our resource page that has everything or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying that the thing that we give to the elected officials is more comprehensive.
Right.
Yeah, so it would have everything on it. Like, it could be the thing that we get it could be a full email, right? Here's the email that here's the response.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Whereas,
take the pieces that you need if you need to copy paste or whatever, you know.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Because I mean, I just think of when I write a press release, right? It's like the easiest you can make it for the newspaper to write it,
right.
to just like copy what you wrote and put it out, makes it a lot more likely that it'll get out, right? Because the less work they have to do.
And unfortunately, why I wanted to clarify it is that I get the sense that and I know the commissioners are newish, that they think they understand how things are supposed to work, but the way they actually work, they don't know. So I think whatever we offer them with the group that we've pulled together will be helpful. Because, for example, even in our last call, to know that people thought that 211 is 24/7, and that encompassed an intake for housing issues, which it doesn't. And just other things that came out of that. So,
well, and that's something else I think we need to talk about. Like what? So, because you're really the expert on this, or you know a lot about it. That danger, like another red zone, right? So if we have this green zone 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, right? Then after those outside hours, when it's a holiday, I remember Commissioner Maxwell said that you could still call and still get placed, but you said that that's not possible. So what kind of resources can we provide someone to get through the weekend, right? Like I think that needs to be, it's probably not a video, but it needs to be something like, here's how you get from Friday at 5:01 to Monday at 8 o'clock. You know what I mean? Like, here's how you get through, like, literally, I think what we need to do is set up, because hopefully someone wouldn't have to go through this more than one weekend, right? So let's say, okay, here are the resources available Friday evening. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday morning, right? Like, I think if we aggregate those and put them on a separate resource page, it could be something that can be directed, people can be directed to, here's where you get food, here's where you get whatever you need.
We probably could get,
what was that?
we probably could help you with food. But we wouldn't be able to, because we still struggle with what to tell a person as far as how for shelter for those next 3 nights. You know, generally when I'm having a conversation with a person, I realize they're in a situation, and I try to help them to look through their resources of friends, families, somebody that they could have a conversation with who might can, if not take them the whole week, at least take them a day and go day to day until hopefully they can get connected on Monday with a service. So we would be we want to be very cautious. There are definitely some services that you probably, in some areas you can find where food is, right? In some areas you might can find where to take a shower. Yes. I don't know on the weekend though, but a shower, right? But as far as a safe place to go, and I don't know what that'd be. I know that for when I used to work in Philly and we used to have the same problem, you know, what we would kind of unofficially tell people that they can't put you out of a public place until it's closed, right? So if you find a 24-hour public place, you can go there when the weather, we always preface it when you have like the extreme weather, whether it's extreme heat or extreme heat or extreme cold. But there's never been a place where somebody goes to be safe,
right, and to be warm and clothed. So exactly what you said, Cheryl. In terms of examples, in Westchester there's Crossroads, Keystone Crossroads, and you can get a shower there and you can wash your clothes. They give you the food that is available to them that the food bank drops off. During COVID, the hours are much shorter and they are not open on the weekends, right? We also unofficially tell people you can't be put out of public places, right, per se, as like help yourself not get put out. But the YMCA, people can take showers at the YMCA.
But you have to have a membership.
If they get past and it's easier in some wives than the other. Like some of the wives will turn their eye to it. But to your point, Kyle, the next phase, or what I hope that the public officials get out of this, is that there is a huge gap in what services are available to people outside the hours of 211. That is a decision to be made at the county level, and or some other level, or the public-private venture kind of level, that people don't have an authorized space.
So I had a crazy idea. At the end of the last meeting, the mayor was talking about how, you know, we're gonna have to think creatively when it comes to housing, right? Because like just having spaces, there just isn't enough spaces, right? I thought perhaps we may have a temporary window of opportunity in that a lot of the universities are not bringing the students back.
Right.
And so these landlords that normally do student housing are going to be sitting with empty homes for at least a semester. And I'm not saying that they'll all be down for this, but if we could find a way to get them, maybe not what they would charge the students, but some income, right? So that they're to cover their mortgage, right? To help these landlords get through these hard times, and maybe perhaps work out a way to have a network of these college homes that could provide temporary weekend shelter for people. I don't know how we would go about organizing something like that, but I think it's logistically possible. There has to be a will, but I think logistically we have this opportunity until December, right? We're going to have a whole bunch, at least until December, we're going to have a whole bunch of empty housing units.
Yes.
And people and landlords who will need some sort of income. And if we have some sort of money, right? And it sounds like, I mean, we don't have infinite resources, but we're not cash poor when it comes to this situation. Perhaps we could figure out a way to work with those landlords. Is that something that anyone has tried doing?
I think those are things outside the box that all of us have talked to officials about and offered suggestions about doing. For example, with people getting vouchers. There are so many people out there with vouchers and nowhere to go, right? And like you said, we have I thought about that too, the college campuses that are currently empty. The landlords can make a month-to-month lease that would still allow the person to be on the hunt for a place to live, and also not lock the landlord in to, you know, that magical day when COVID is all gone, and they can't then rent to a college student at a higher rent. The other thing that I believe we glossed over in earlier conversations is that there are these churches, no, they're not zoned for shelter. However, they have capacity, they have resources, and there could be a, what is it called? I want to say a waiver. There's not a waiver, but they can get a special, I want to say a dispensation, whatever it is. They can get permission to have, you know, the codes would come in and inspect, and they would say, this place, this section right here, you know, is appropriate for emergency shelter over the weekend or whatever. How it gets set up, the logistics, again, Kyle, like you said, that hasn't been nailed down, but that's the least of our worries when we have nonprofit faith-based organizations or faith-based organizations who are willing, and there are tons that are willing and not able because they're not zoned to do it.
So who would we have to, because I mean, like that, it just seems like such a natural solution, right? Of course, these religious organizations are around on the weekend, right? That's when they mostly function. So what step, so, I mean, for both of these things, right? If the holdup is the government, right? Why not just start talking directly to, like, so one of the women who, she wasn't able to make it today, but she's going to make it in the future. She's from Acton Faith. Her name's Haley.
Hallie. Mm-hmm.
Hallie. And so, you know, maybe she could be a conduit for that. But then maybe, you know, with the landlords, why don't we reach out to some of the big landlords around here? I mean, again, the worst they say is no.
Yeah. See, the only thing I'm okay with thinking out the box. I just want to just kind of caution, because this is what I see, and what I try to do is be able to receive and think about the possibilities. I think it's a great idea. My concern is if it's month to month, when their targeted people come back or their desired people come back, then we're still dealing with homelessness. And also those families or individuals may not leave because there's nowhere else to go. Then we have to go through eviction. That's my only concern with such a tenuous kind of thing.
Right. I mean, we'd have to tweak that. You're absolutely right.
Right. But I just want to make sure that we think, because
I'm not going to be calling them after the meeting today. Right. I'm just saying that this is a plan that I think we need to sit down and, like, I think this is, and maybe we do reach out to the landlords and get them involved in the conversation.
Oh, yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe we say, this is our idea. How do we make this work?
Right.
Because I think, you know, you're already thinking about the problems, which is good. They're going to appreciate that, right? Mm-hmm. We're not coming in, you know, I'm a little too optimistic sometimes, I admit. So I think coming in with a realistic look at the situation and saying, hey, Mr. X or Mrs. X, this is our idea. Where can you meet us?
Right.
Maybe they're just like, this can't happen. And then we have to work. But maybe they're like, okay, well, that's an interesting thought. Because again, we would be helping them financially as well, right? We're not asking them for free housing. We're going to find financing through some organization to do this. They will understand that they will most likely not be getting their full rate that they've been charging, but we can figure out, okay, how much is your mortgage? Let's make sure you're not underwater, right? Let's make sure that you're making at least a little bit of money off of this so that, you know, it justifies fixing the sinks
Mhm.
and doing whatever you have to do, you know, to maintain a quality housing unit.
And there is an incentive out for people to accept Section 8, but for the landlords, $1,000 incentive, Cheryl, unless something changed over the last couple of weeks. That has been.
Well, and we're looking at the
Let me
we're
just
looking at the
answer
worst
this, I'm
case
sorry.
scenario. No, it's fine. We're looking at the worst case scenario, but the best case scenario, right, is a family moves in to one of these college units, and then they get a job, and they get, you know, and then they stay, and then a college unit turns into a family that lives on your block. And I think that everyone on the block would probably be fine with that, as long as the landlord can charge his full rent. He's happy with that. I mean, again, I sometimes look too much at the upside, but I think that that is something that we need to lay out for landlords possibly as well.
Because they may not have thought outside the box. And I am accused of the glittery unicorn kind of thinking as well. But to me, all I can say is no. But like you said, and it would create diversity. And more things are going to come out of it that haven't been seen, just like we've noticed with COVID, right? Solutions have been, you know, realized that the opportunity was there before, but we were just doing business as usual. And now we're not doing business as usual. And people are starting to notice that, wait a minute, people can work from home. Families can have a work-life balance. There are other challenges with school and that kind of stuff, but, you know, we can work differently is the thing. And I think at this point, and the further we get into it, there's a push-pull that the landlords, there's going to be a value proposition, long story short, for the landlords to help work to prevent this problem. And we definitely have to get the information out there to people for cares. I don't know if I mentioned on the last call, but I called a landlord on behalf of a client just trying to advocate for a place for her. And he said, Renee, I would have about 20 units available right now if there wasn't a moratorium. He's ready to evict. He said, the thing is, I said, well, do you have the information about the CARES Act? You know, I'm thinking if you help your tenants, you know, stay who want to stay, then, you know, they would be able to stay if they can get this money. And this landlord of a very large building said, or maybe he has several properties, he said, Renee, I've given them the number to the CARES to get the rent subsidy, everything. And then I touched base with them again the next month, and they have not made a phone call. So the difference, or the distinction, when I was working with street outreach, the distinction for us was for people who may not know how to be good tenants, or who may think, a lot of people still think, blew my mind, I heard this on national news, a lot of people still think that the moratorium means that they don't have to pay their rent. And that may be one of the most important things we put.
That actually could be, that should probably be another video, is what is the eviction moratorium?
Yes,
like
yes.
What is going on? Like what is creating this? I think that has to be like the very first thing, right? What is creating, because look,
this
as much as I want to, we're not going to solve homelessness, but we can, the goal of this group is to prevent the shock to the system, or at least ease the shock to the system, so that the already overwhelmed services, we can smooth out that curve, right? And I think framing the situation, why is this going to happen, allows people that are affected and people who aren't directly affected to be better informed about, you know, because I think there are going to be people who aren't directly affected, who are sympathetic to our cause and are going to want to help. And so they need to be informed that the problem is happening, right? So what is the eviction moratorium and what does it mean?
And what does it mean in Chester County and in Pennsylvania? Or what does it mean? What does it mean, period? And however we word it, what the different, and you guys
locally focused. It'll be locally focused.
Yeah, and you guys tell me if you've heard different, but I've heard that it means something different federally you know, statewide and then locally?
Statewide, we're in Pennsylvania, we're in a better situation than most, at least
Yes.
temporarily.
Temporarily.
Now he may extend the eviction moratorium, I've heard, but then again, that adds, it's great because it keeps people in homes, but then it adds more problems because then people are going to build up more debt. So I think, obviously, I want him to extend the moratorium. It just gives this group more time to do our work before the, for lack of a better term, like the explosion. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I'm hoping he does, but I'm behaving as if he won't. That's kind of my take on this.
Right.
And so I think that's 4 videos. Totally, I can totally do that in 2 weeks with my team. I just need, again, Renee, if I could sit down with you, maybe at some point, you seem to be the wellspring of knowledge for this, and help me bang out at least the copy and the feeling and stuff like that. And then what I can do is, obviously, I'll show them to the group before we put them out. That way we can make any tweaks and make sure, because I really want to make sure that it's the right information, right? I have no problem getting it in front of a couple thousand people. So we
don't
gotta
need
just make
junk
sure
data. We don't need more junk data.
Right, right. There's a couple things that Josh said he was going to look into. He emailed me today. He said that he's going to be back next time, but he couldn't make it today. But I know he said he was looking into getting the eviction info. So I guess if we make this flyer, getting it to them as they're being evicted.
Right.
Looking into creating actual physical centers in some of the municipalities, which I think is a really exciting idea. I think it also helps, I think, like I said last week, it helps foot traffic in the areas where it is, right? Because people are going to be coming in. It could actually help businesses around that are struggling in those areas.
Right.
Mauricia, who she's worked with me with the Yang Gang, and we have a Thoughtful Good project. She is looking into a chat bot. So what we could do is come up with, one of the things that Josh mentioned was that we needed a navigation tool, right? So that people know, okay, this is my situation. So if we had a list of yes, no questions that could then guide people through a decision tree, she's looking into the ability of making a chat bot. So people, like, it could be 24/7, you know what I mean? And maybe this is what 211 already does, and if it is, then we don't want to recreate some. But if it isn't, this is a tool that I think we could build. Another thing is, so right now I'm just hosting the information on my KeystoneDigital.tv website, but I am totally capable of building a separate website. And I found, so I use this tracker link that I sent you guys an email. It's bit.ly/I need shelter.
And that was available. I was surprised that was available too.
Yeah, so I looked up and I actually found we can get a website that's ineedshelter.today.
Wow.
And it's like $4. So I would totally buy that. And if you guys think that if you guys think that having a website like this is a valuable resource, I will make it. If we're reinventing the wheel and just duplicating efforts that 201 is already doing, I don't want to do that. So I think maybe next week we should discuss that more when we have more of the government officials back, because I'm totally capable of doing it. I can make it look really nice, but again, I don't want to be distracting from the efforts that are already being done.
No, right.
See, but I also, somehow or another, I want to broaden it a little bit more, right? Because I need shelter versus I need help to keep from going into the shelter is very different. If you have I need shelter, people are not going to go there for prevention services.
That's true.
You know, and there in some ways there's already a network of information or whatever to get to shelter, because that's what 211 is about, rather how affected whatever.
Emergency shelter.
Right.
So I got GoDaddy open right now. Let's look up some URLs.
Yeah. I was wondering what you were finding as you were doing this research.
Well, so because I was doing I need shelter, with just that popped up, it was available, so I snagged it. So we have that link, so we can give that link to people and still direct them to other places.
Yeah.
We can call it something else and still have that I need shelter link and send it to and use it as a direct here. And the cool thing is that will track people, so we can see how many people are using it. There's like analytics on the back end. It's really cool, and it's
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, if you think a better name, I mean, so what would you say? What kind of terminology? I'm gonna punch some terminology into this search bar here. So what do you think would be better, more useful, less stigmatizing?
You know, we all struggling with that too. But I'm also wondering. So this is not to answer that one, but I'm also thinking, is it helpful? Would it attract people's attention if this was related to COVID, right? Because a lot of the stress and things that people are experiencing now, the larger number of people have been impacted because of COVID. So it's almost like a COVID kind of response to housing instability or whatever. I mean, I hate to kind of put it that way, but again, trying to help people who are in denial about what it is that they're experiencing, kind of being able to put some around and say, okay, yeah, I'm in this situation because of this, not necessarily because of.
I can get covidemergencyhousing.com for $1.
So say that again. So
covidemergencyhousing.com.
I probably will be concerned about, and I'm trying not to be the naysayer, but I'm also thinking when you put housing on there, then they're going to expect you to have housing.
Which is great, because what you're saying, Cheryl, exactly is true. But it'll draw them to the site. They'll be looking for housing, but everybody won't be looking for housing. For some, will be looking for shelter.
So do me a favor, put housing services.
Yes.
Okay, and that takes the onus off of just housing.
Right.
Well, I'm just saying we don't want to make it too long.
I know.
You know what I mean? So let's if there's something more concise we can come up with instead of housing.
Okay.
COVID emergency resources.com. That's taken. COVID emergency info.com. COVIDemergencyinfo.com is available.
Nice.
Then that might be a better way to.
That's incredible. It always blows my mind when I find some stuff online. It's like you'd think that would have been like taken months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's COVIDemergencyinfo.com.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna add to cart.
those options are out there. I think I think your framework and the way you're thinking about it in those tiers is critical. And I think as many links or information or pamphlets, flyers, whatever we come up with that push people to the website, which has everything on it in a way that they can use a decision tree to get to it. And then
another thing that my wife and I do when COVID struck, my wife and I helped build the Chester County Masketeers website. It was like a making resource. Just to give you Chester County Masketeers, if you've seen it, that's another one of my work. Okay. So maybe we could even put a link to that on there, right? So we can have like this just be a giant toolkit. Okay, if your life has been thrown upside down by COVID, here's how. Because then again, people come there for the other stuff and they might see, oh, wait, right. I tick these boxes, right? Maybe they might come there because they're food insecure.
Right.
And realize, wait, okay, I'm also housing insecure.
And if I'm not, I know someone who is.
Yeah, I'm buying this right now. I cannot believe this URL is available.
Okay. Now, unfortunately, guys, I got another call, so I'm gonna have to jump off. So
I think this was a very productive So if you guys could just send me again all the links that you guys were talking about, any of that stuff for like the videos that you were mentioning, like how to be a good tenant.
Cheryl, can you handle the link?
I can handle that, and I can get the contact from United Way.
Yes, and then I'll reach out to them this week. And if Renee, sorry, what were you gonna say, Cheryl?
And then Robin from Hack regarding the CARES.
Robin Sense.
Right.
Regarding the CARES information.
Right. So that's the what is the rental assistance? I forget what it's called, but it helps people up to 6 months on back rent.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm surprised on the people who would be eligible, for it because of the medium of the county. Of course, I know there's going to be some challenges with the landlords accepting that, but that's another story. The resources there.
Right. And the resources it's going to go fast. And we have to, the elephant in the room is that some of the money is not going to get in the hands of the people who need it. So we need to get this information out soon so people who actually qualify and need it can get to it before it is gone, I'll say.
Well, and that's going to be, I really do think by having, in addition to the digital stuff, I think creating a sticker, that gives me, I think a sticker, because I was thinking about this, right?
Okay, I'm sorry, gotta go, bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. So like if we're making a pamphlet, like distribution for that could be difficult, right? Like as far as printing costs and stuff like that. Stickers, you can make a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you can just slap them everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere legal.
Right.
And I just think that it could be something we could produce probably very cheaply. And like I said, we have a more comprehensive resources that we can distribute out through official channels, but having just a basic 3 bullet points.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's a website. I can even make a QR code that will take people to the place. You know what I mean?
Yes. And rent and even the mortgage assistance. People aren't thinking about that. And a lot of people are upside down. And they just aren't thinking that that CARES money is also for people with mortgages.
Yes, we need to also, I need to be mindful to include them because they are being affected just as much. And I think that, we can't just focus on the apartment renters because the people with, the homeowners, they're just as behind the 8 ball as anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I guess I'll reach out to you. If you can send me those links, I'll reach out to you about a time in the next week so we can sit down.
I think the only one was the Bridge Academy.
And the links to be a good tenant.
No, that's the one Cheryl's going to do.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, it's PA Link with Elizabeth Doan is the person. She is a powerhouse. If we can invite her to be a part of this, because she advocates for people for a lot of different things.
Send me your contact information. I'm sorry, I forgot to put the other person you sent. I forgot to put her on this email, but I'll put it on the next one.
Elizabeth Doan. I'll see. Well, when Cheryl sends you the information, definitely invite her. Elizabeth, or if I find the PA link, I'll just send you that and it'll have her information on it. And the Bridge Academy. I'm gonna call Jordan myself. And the Krantz they're well known throughout this community, and they do camps and all kinds of stuff. And folks go there. I've gotten a lot of clients who are housing unstable, and I get a phone call from the receptionist saying, I'm talking to this person, and are you able to help her? I'm like, I'll get in my car and I'll go. So, yes.
Awesome.
I'll send you those right away.
So, and when I'll send you an email either later today or tomorrow, and we'll figure out a time to get on another Zoom call.
Yeah.
And privately hammer out, the details of this stuff. So that I probably won't have the videos done by the next meeting next week, but I'll at least be able to have framework and, we'll be able to say, this is what we're going to do. This is the schedule. This is the plan. This is the script. And then people can kind of look at what we're going to say before I make it. And then we'll have people review it after I make it. So then we make sure
who will be the people in the videos? Will it just be you?
Most likely it'll be me just because of limited production ability. I am talking to one of my friends to come out from Philly for like another gig, for like a paid gig. And I'll see if I can tack some of this on the back.
The only thing I want to put a pin in is for what we don't hear and what we don't see. And ever since I've been working with the county, ever since I've been with Street Outreach, and I'm, again, as of about 2 weeks ago, I'm moving on, and they have someone else as the team lead for that, as I understand. But we don't hear from the people who are homeless. We don't see them. They're still invisible. They're not on a flyer. They're not in a pamphlet. They have these stock photos. They don't have a voice. And so they have no skin in the game. They need to know to advocate for themselves. I try to talk to them about the census and voting, and they don't think they matter. and they don't see themselves anywhere. So I can't, so that's just to stick a pin in it. But
I'm down to do interviews with people if they're willing to do interviews. I mean, if you can set up an interview like this, again, I don't know, the technology might be limited, but maybe we can talk to one of the shelters and see if we can set up an interview and put that up on Facebook. Do you know what I mean? Just because I do interviews every week. So like I could do an interview. We can explore.
Trevor Noah, and they could be on the other side.
Yeah, that's very flattering. Trevor Noah is a master of the craft. I wouldn't compare myself to him, but yeah, if you want to set up something like that, if you have someone who's interested and willing to talk, I'd be happy.
I know a couple of clients are just stuck out in my mind as going through it, getting through it, and still standing up, still.
I'm down for that. Like, again, any more information and stories are always good.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. So I'm going to look up those links right now and send them to you before my phone rings.
All right. Thank you so much. And I guess I'll talk to you next week. Well, I'll talk to you before next week, but we'll be in touch soon.
We'll work it out. Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Well, is that your dog? Bye, doggy, or cat?
A cat. That was Fluffy, probably.
He was stealing something. I didn't want to tell him, but all right. I'll talk soon.